She really wanted to come to
You're going to have to take him.
Sure.
Ed, you want Patty there? Ed?
I'll get her for you.
My goodness.
She really wanted to come to
You're going to have to take him. No. What we need is a big glass of water.
Mom, I remember something about you telling a story of how you went to college, and first you weren't going to get to go, and then a Dr. Garrett Hines came over.
Yes.
Well, how did that go again?
Well, I had won a $75 scholarship to go to Calvin, but my folks were not about to let me go to Calvin and pay my way down there and pay more tuition, buy my books, and they weren't that inclined to send me to college. But Dr. Garrett Hines was the principal of Western Academy, which is called Western Christian High now in Hull, Iowa. Anyway, he came over and he said, your daughter has to go to college. She's college material. And if you will let her go, I will take her along and I will see, she can work for us, and I will see that she gets to Calvin and that she gets a boarding place, and I will get her started. And that is the way I got to go to Calvin.
Did you live with them then?
I lived with them in Holland, Michigan. We went in a Ford, old-fashioned Ford, what we used to call a Tin Lizzie, and no air conditioning or anything like that. And I have memories of that. Coming through Holland, Michigan, the sun was setting, and it was going through the trees, and there's so many trees in Holland, Michigan, that the roads just flickered all the time. And I was half expectant and half homesick. I really had mixed feelings. And then we came to the place where they were going to live in a big house, kind of set back on a lot with a long, long green lawn. It was quite a kind of an acreage. And I worked for them then all summer. And in the fall, Garrett Hines took me to Calvin. But I almost went to Hope in Grand Rapids, in Holland, Michigan, because we went to a lake resort for a weekend, and Dr. Meader from Calvin said, be sure you come to Calvin. And I said, well, Garrett Hines, Dr. Garrett Hines and his wife are trying to persuade me to go to Hope so I can stay with them and work for them. And he says, you don't go for that. You come to Calvin. You belong at Calvin. So Dr. Henry Meader made me come to Calvin. That's the real reason. Otherwise, Hope would have been pretty good too, but okay. But I had planned to go to Calvin, and I ended up at Calvin. He got me a good place to stay, where I worked for my board. I earned all my tuition, all my books, and I had money to take home.
So in the summer then, you
I-
took care of their little boy you were talking about. That was in the summer that you took care of their little boy?
I took care of Roger Hines, who ended up in Berkeley.
He straightened out after all the
He straightened out,
problems, didn't he?
straightened out Berkeley.
He was
quite a little
She
bit.
must have taught him discipline. See, and then he
But,
had to go straighten out that university.
I took care of Roger and Jackie Hines, and I enjoyed it there. I enjoyed those two kids, and but I enjoyed going to Calvin very much, and I cried when I left. The folks said I had to come home. The folks said I had to come home and make money because it was the Depression.
Is that when you met Dad then after school?
No, I taught. They told me to apply at schools, and I got a position in a Peace Christian school where I taught 2 years. No, I didn't meet him. I played the field there.
Explain what you mean by that, Grandma.
Well, I went with different ones. As soon as they got serious, then I cut it off and went with somebody else. It was kind of funny, really interesting. The first night I went to church on Sunday night, it didn't happen in the morning, but the first Sunday night that I went to church, the guys were lined up outside, ready to ask me. They all wanted the new teacher. So,
time-wise, what year? What are we talking about? What year was that?
that was, see, I graduated in 1928. So that would be the fall of 1929. I really only had 1 year of college, but I had a very good high school education. And that 1 year of college was helpful too.
I think I heard some stories about peace.
Yeah, I did too.
What was
I think
that?
Mom
I think
was
she was
only
a
19.
terrorist.
Quite a cut up from what I understand.
Well,
You girls would get together and do some really silly, funny
we
things.
had a lot of fun. I never saw a place that was so friendly.
Mom, it was more than that.
Yeah.
Come on now, tell us what really happened. Didn't you end up on the
How
roof?
come you girls know so much? Just because
We looked at some pictures and there were some people on the roof and Dad was saying,
Is this too wild for me?
maybe you ought to. I don't think Connie ever knew that you were on the roof.
But a bunch of us girls one Sunday afternoon, we just did about everything. We climbed the roof of the garage and had our picture taken there. We had a mock wedding rehearsal. We had, we sat on the ground and all different kinds of positions and
I thought teachers had to be demure and
Especially in
models
1929.
for the
1929.
society.
There were laws for teachers. They couldn't, they couldn't
Well,
get
these
married
other
or
teachers
that or
too?
something. They had to stay with
Other
them.
teachers too?
no, it's funny, but that 1 year, those 2 years of teaching in Peace, I really had a ball. We played cards and there's big kitchen tables. And we didn't sit out in cars and spoon and so. We went into people's houses. They were wonderful. They were wonderful. All the people. I hardly ever was home for dinner. On Sunday, I would have invitations out to families. Even the families of the pupils. And friends. So it was hard to leave Peace too.
How do you spell peace?
Peace is P-E-A-S-E.
I can see porridge.
But I started to have some trouble with my brother, and my mother and dad said, you come home, you give up the job, let him stay there. It's harder to get a principal.
Oh, Bill was principal.
He was principal. Yeah, I was really the one who got him there, told him about it, I wanted him to
How did he
come.
put up with all that cutting out? He didn't know what you...
No, he didn't like that at all.
Patty?
He went to the consistory about my playing cards.
Oh, Patty, did
You
you
play
ever
cards?
hear these stories?
Oh,
Yeah? You heard
too
about
bad.
it? Which side did you hear? From Bill or?
No, I never
But
heard
the
from
folks-
Bill.
Oh, you never heard anything about that?
No.
I didn't. See, I was just born.
Oh, you
Yeah.
See, I was born the years that she went to Calvin, and
Yeah.
I was born in February, and my mother had so many children she didn't know what to call them anymore. And so finally Annetta said, "Call her Patricia." And my mother said, "Oh, that's way too modern. I'll look a little longer in the Bible and find a name." So she found Lois, the grandmother of Timothy. And I don't think I look like Lois at all.
Well, I want to tell you that Patty was the darlingest baby. And see, she was born in February. And I came home about the first week in June. And that whole summer, I would carry her outdoors around the yard. She was just darling. Well, he had seen me around for quite a while, and I didn't know him from Adam. And I heard somebody talked about him to me and said, "You ought to go out with Curly Corwin." So I don't know him. And I asked my mother, I said, "Do you know Curly Corwin, who he is?" And she says, "Well, they're the Corwins north of town. They're way out of your class." I said, "What do you mean?" "Oh, they're higher class." I says, "I'd like to know who's higher class than I am." Now you are going to meet him, huh? A challenge. So, well, she didn't approve of that too much. But anyway, he asked Walt Gruneweg to introduce me to him on a Sunday night. He didn't just pick me up off the street like some of you guys did, you know. They cruised the street in Rock Valley, go round and round. I think they do that some places here too, but they all always did it. Maybe they still do it. I wouldn't doubt a bit, but they still do it. And also on Saturday night, the band played right in the center of town, and that was quite something. And everybody would be in town on Saturday night. And then the girls would walk up and down the street, and the boys would be parked or cruising. So that's how they got their dates then. But anyway, Walt Gruneweg, my sister, who became my sister's husband, introduced him to me. And then I went along with him on a Sunday night. And he seemed so strange. I didn't know him at all. And I knew all the other kids, and he wasn't Dutch. You know, just seemed different. So it was close to the 4th of July.
Kind of exotic, huh?
No, he wanted a date for the 4th, but I said, no, I think I would like to be with the other kids on the 4th. So I had one last fling with all the other kids, and we went to a forbidden movie in Haywarden, a bunch of us kids.
We're finding out what was playing.
No.
We're finding out some things.
No. And then after that, I started to go with him steady. But there was one that tried to break us up. One of the guys that I had been going with tried to get me to, caught me out of church and told me to break the date. I said, I don't do that. So I kept going with Dad.
Well, what would you like about him?
I thought he was good looking. He didn't smoke. He didn't drink. He was very mannerly. All those things put together. He seemed to have principles. He didn't like our church. He didn't like the Dutch at all. And I knew I'd never get him to go to that Rock Valley church.
Is that still true, Grandpa? No.
He said, you'll never get me in that church. So.
They're the solid earth.
Elder in that church.
No, he says there's a salt of the earth.
Yeah.
But anyway,
You should pull your chair
I
up here
became a member of the Methodist Church, and I told them that I wanted to retain all my Calvinistic principles. That I still am a Calvinist. And when they reported that when I became a member, minister announced that I was keeping all my Calvinistic principles. And I was becoming a Methodist, but still I was a Calvinistic Methodist.
We're a heretic.
So all the children were baptized in the Methodist Church.
Yeah, I was,
I wonder if you would have been Christian Reformed and then announced that you would have kept all your...
Right.
I don't think it would have gone very well that way.
Yeah,
They were
Oh, that's right. Oh, that's interesting. So you turned out to be ecumenical from the very beginning. Huh?
Yes, I sure did. And then, of course, getting back into the Christian Reformed Church entailed quite a bit. When we lived at Laverne, a minister from Hills, Minnesota came over and asked me if I would help him start a Christian Reformed Church in Laverne. And I said I would be glad to. So that's what we did. We started a church in Laverne, and I was head of the Sunday school and of the Sunday school and the catechism every Saturday. I sometimes had to teach several classes, but I took Connie along, about 2 years old or so, in her little snowsuit. I had her sit with all the other kids that I was teaching. And I was very involved with that church. We didn't have a church yet. We started out in a Oddfellows Hall, and then we bought a big house that was made of quarry rock. And that was our church. And the minister lived upstairs with his family.
I remember all the church people cleaning that place and getting it ready for the minister.
You do?
Yeah.
He came from South Dakota.
Just like Murphy's Oil Soap now in the commercial.
Oh.
With the banisters and everything.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
But actually now,
Anyway.
I think that was in the 40s. And where we left you was in the early 30s, right?
Yeah, by the big old house.
In the
But
big,
the big
house.
old house.
Now, when was the crash? Wasn't that in 29?
Yes.
The big crash?
I had some money in the bank and lost it. A little bit of teaching money.
Oh.
And they hadn't paid me because of the crash. They hadn't paid me for quite a few months. And I got that later, and it's a good thing they hadn't paid me, or I'd have been in the bank and gotten lost. So I got the money. And Dad asked for it to put it down on a Chevy. That was our first car. So we put that money down on our Chevy. It was $300, and $300 then was a
Real
lot of
American,
money.
a Chevy.
You had saved $300 out of your teaching pay?
Yes, after paying
In
board
those
and everything.
years,
Just
that's
one
a lot of
year.
money.
The 2 years that I taught in Pease, I paid $25 board, $50 I sent home, and I kept $10 for myself for 2 years.
Oh,
And you saved that $300 out of that $10?
No, I saved that $10 the last year of my teaching in the public school in the country.
Oh.
And I boarded at home and gave them $25. And I got $95 there instead of $85.
Oh.
So,
They paid better in the public schools than already.
yes. And I taught Don and I taught Marlene.
Oh. Yeah.
And I taught Tressa in the Dune School for a while.
Well,
I
tell us
just
about
substituted there.
the big place.
The big place. Oh, the big place. Well, I don't know if you remember anything about the big place, but I know that you used to walk down the lane to Grandma Corwin's cottage to see her, and it would be after lunch, and it was really your nap time.
That was
So-
my great-grandmother, right?
Your great-grandmother, Grandma Corwin. It was his grandmother, Francis' grandmother. Anyway, she would take you on her lap, and she would rock you. And then when you'd come back, I'd say, "Did you have a nap?" And you'd say, No, but Grandma did. No, but Grandma did. I always got a kick out of that. When we moved to the mound, you kids just love the mound, Steve.
Yeah. Did you not have some neighbors called bloodsuckers?
Blankenshore.
Blank sport. No, that's on the other.
No.
Bloodsuckers.
No,
Well, some kind of a sucker. Because we were walking on the tracks one time.
Oh, really?
And you said, "Oh, I think those." I thought it was bloodsuckers are coming.
Maybe I called it that because the ones that had the big boys that I
don't
for my
know.
life always.
I don't know. And I said, "Oh dear, what are those things? Let's hurry home." And you said, "Oh, those are just the neighbors." And I thought, what a funny name.
Well, I don't know, but I know that when I went to that school, that those big boys, they were like in the 8th grade, even out in the 2nd. And I had to try to outrun them, and they threatened to tie me to the railroad tracks to where the
Well, now that was at Rock Rapids, Jeff.
That was at Rock
Before
Rapids.
we moved to Laverne.
Was there a train track at Laverne too?
Yes, there was. But the one at Rock Rapids, that was the one that I was so afraid for Nancy, because she would come meet me and the train was coming and she couldn't decide. I was on one side and our house was on the other side. And she wouldn't stay with me because she wanted to be closer to
I wanted to see how many times we could do it.
She was compulsive enough to try to cross that track. That little.
in front of that train coming.
Don't you remember, Connie?
I'll never forget
And
it.
then you told me, and then she's screaming, don't! And my
I
wicker,
don't think
I could have been mowed down with my wicker buggy and all. And later you scared me so badly. You said one time there was an accident with somebody in a train, and their eyes came right out of their head and rolled down the track. You told me these hideous stories, so I'd never do anything like that again. And another thing
She
you
needed
did.
something like that.
I have to remember some of those.
I
Tell
don't
me
have
more of those. I'm teaching kindergarten.
Fear, motivation, is what it's called.
Fear, motivation.
And then, you know, when we were a little older and we were climbing the mountains and those rocks, and there was this one rock, I don't know what we named it, and it had no hardly any crevices. Every once in a while we could get up it, and then it was like El Capitan to it. And we couldn't get up it, and you had done it, you had ascended it, and so Carol, I thought, no, it's my turn, but I'll try this day. So I'm up there and whatever, and you guys are down below, and I said, help, I'm hanging on to bare rock here, please help me. And you go, would you expect it to have clothes on?
Oh, really?
And this stuff,
But it was almost like the elephant's burial. That big mound.
Funny. You all did help me in that, but it was funny. It was like, that stuck in my mind as something like a metaphor. It was like, weird.
Do you remember that Grandma came over, Mom came over to our place once, and I said, you ought to take a walk up to the mounds with me once. Climb the mounds with me. Okay, she says. So we started up the mounds, and here, what do you know? A great big snake headed towards us. And she said, oh, sick. She turned around and down she went, and never. She climbed that mountain again. She said, you can't get me up there.
Do you remember she used to come and sew for those girls?
Yeah.
And maybe they didn't always like those dresses. But remember those ones with those 3 little bows here in the front? Do you recall those?
Those were cute.
They were cute, weren't they?
She'd make peplums, and they have them now.
Yeah.
The little, you mean where she sewed for us?
Yeah.
Well, I remember one time that I wanted a dress, and I wanted to store it if I saw one.
Yeah.
That was the only dress I wanted so bad. And Mom said, no, Grandma will come and sew. And I said, but I know how I want the dress. But what she said then was, well, I'll have Grandma make you 3 dresses, and you can design them. You draw them out.
You're the drawing designer to this day. Okay.
So I did. I still remember what those dresses looked like. But we looked and looked for a belt, just like the bought one, to try to. We finally found something similar. But she did that. But what I remember about the mounds place is that you and Dad would go out to these movies with who was Ingrid Bergman and Oh,
yeah.
Raised and
Yeah,
gaslight.
gaslight, yes.
Those kinds of things. And you go to fall.
Casablanca.
No, we'd go during the day.
Or you go black picture show.
We went during the day to the movies while you were in school.
Oh,
But at night we
I
would
never
go to the
knew
movies
that,
once in a
Carol.
Oh,
while.
they had these romantic interviews.
I never knew they did that though.
Yeah, and sometimes they wouldn't come back. Like I was in high school, and then I'd have to walk home because they were having such a ball together. Of course, it wasn't very far. I still like to walk. I mean, it was only 2.5 miles.
Yeah, they did have a very special relationship.
I was usually very anxious to get home and quick get some potatoes in the kettle and have potatoes and meat for supper. And
I
have
know
my
you
family
were quite
eat.
the mother too. You really
Yeah,
were.
we're kidding you now.
Yeah.
We're very faithful.
Yeah.
I could hardly wait to get home and
That
have
must have
a
been exciting for you though when Dad would sneak you away. Because not every husband does that, you know. And in those days, a farmer.
You remember that long kitchen porch type
Oh
thing?
yeah.
Yeah.
That lean-to.
It was like the summer kitchen.
Yes. It was really
Where the threshers ate and all. Yeah.
What a job to clean that.
Yes. And then there was a threshers came.
Yes, right.
That's when Carol put the salt in the potatoes.
No, that was in the big
Another house.
That summer, I
We were
remember that summer kitchen is where you wash too. You wash
Yes, washing
And
was
you
such
wash-
a job because we didn't have electricity.
And you
it
had a big kettle that you shaved the soap in.
That's right.
And
A
that you
boiler.
heated the water on the kerosene stove. And how did you get that kettle
Yeah.
to the washer? Did Dad come in
That
and take
boiler.
one in? That boiler
No,
full of
that
water?
boiler, we put the boiler on with a little water and then we fill it.
Yeah, but how'd you take the
And
water?
then we would dip it out into buckets and bring it to the machine.
Carry it to the machine.
Washing was hard.
Memories, did you like it on the farm or what?
I liked it on the farm, but it seemed to me that going to Calvin and being in a house in a city, I liked the idea of a lawn and a house in the city. I thought, I wonder if I'll ever live in a house in the city with a lawn.
Oh, you like that? Picking fence?
But you know, I heard you say that later, but you never said that when you were on the farm. At least
I liked the idea of people around me, that I didn't have to know the people, but that there were people all around me and activity too. Although I did enjoy the farm in some ways too.
But
There
you
was
did.
a lot of work on the farm.
There was a lot of work on the farm.
You did get that in California. In fact, it had a picket fence.
Oh, I was so happy when we moved to California and I saw that house with the picket fence. I was on top of the world.
Playroom? Or?
Yeah, the farm is a wonderful place for children to grow up.
Back in the
I
city
think.
when I was 35.
I'm glad that my children
I had 30 years.
had a taste of the farm, that my children started on the farm. I think it's a wonderful place to grow up. I'm glad they did.
You had a little stint there in the hangar, didn't you?
Yeah, we lived in a hangar there before we moved to California.
Connie can tell you something terrible there.
What happened?
Going off that top
Oh,
ledge of
yes.
that thing, emptying that dog bottle.
Oh, yeah.
She kept going.
The apartment.
My chiropractor said, "Did you fall as a child?" And I thought, and I said, "Well, I fell from a second story,
Fell right past the window.
playing up on a second floor with no railing or anything. And you know how those little doll bottles have those little openings.
Yeah.
The water wouldn't come out, so I'm out there pumping the water out over this ledge." And all of a sudden, I just went. And I remember I landed on my bottom, and I ran around screaming afterwards. I got up fast and was running around screaming. And she was at the window, and you saw me go by.
Yeah.
I saw her come past the window.
There must have been 5 or 6.
It was a deck up there.
How old was I
They
when you
used
moved
to
to
play
there?
on that deck. They had a playhouse up there.
Yeah, because I was 8 or 9.
Wait a minute. Was it a
We
dirt
were around
floor?
6 years old.
Was the hangar a dirt floor or was it?
Yeah,
a
it was
Yeah.
ground.
Oh,
Dirt dirt because they would taxi to get out of there, and his mom happened to have the kitchen window open. She would complain a little about that.
That does.
To the kitchen. That Dad had learned how to fly. Did you? You didn't know that he was.
No, I didn't know he was taking flying lessons. And I was serving coffee to a bunch of men, and Freeland was having lunch with them. And all of a sudden, he said something that spilled the beans. And he was supposed to keep that a secret, which was pretty good for him to keep that quite a while.
Mom,
How old was he? How old was he?
exactly.
I think he was about 7, around 7.
We were in that summer kitchen.
Yes.
Yes, we were in the
Around
summer kitchen
that round
around that
table.
round table. I remember it exactly.
Oh, you do?
When all of
Well, what
a
did I
sudden he
say?
said something about, boy, that was sure something the way that plane went into that hangar or something, didn't it? And Mom says, what plane? What hangar? And he goes, uh-oh. And Dad says, well, he gets that kind of sheepish smile on his face, you know.